It's Monday night. There's folks outside my window playing tennis. You might be able to hear them at times because this microphone is very sensitive. Played a bunch of pinball the last few days. I owe you guys 97 because Zach interrupted. We're going to do that tonight on Coast to Coast Pinball episode number 98. Let's go. Welcome to Coast to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is, of course, a podcast, comma, a commentary, comma, and I'm a man out of quarters. One of those three things is not quite true. I'll let you decide on that. Welcome. It is Monday, July 28th, 2014, coming to you not live from San Diego, California. It's almost my birthday. It's fantastic. I'm really hoping that on my birthday, which I think is Wednesday, I get a call or an email or smoke signal from Spooky Pinball telling me, hey, guess what? Your America's Most Haunted is ready. I hope. You never know. Looks like they're shipping games out. I keep seeing photos coming across my Facebook feed of Spooky Pinball and boxed up America's Most Haunted going out the door, so cannot wait till I get mine. Had a ton of feedback on episode 97 with Zach, my friend Zach from work, who's a better pinball player than me on a lot of levels. He doesn't know a lot about the rules, but time and time again he proves that he can keep the ball alive longer and score better. Zach and I made a little trek out Saturday night to the newly opened, moved location of Nickel City, here in San Diego, California, on Miramar Road. That's Miramar as in Top Gun, you know, the fighter jets and all that. So, finally, San Diego is going to have a pinball destination. Nickel City, you know, before had 5 games, and it was pretty good. There's a few other places around town with 2 or 3 or 4 games, but nowhere that really kind of could be home base. You know, the High Dive is a cool little bar that always has 2 or 3 really good games, and that's it. But it's a bar, it's cramped. Nickel City is going to be it. I think that the gentleman who runs Palomar Amusements, who I believe supplies the games to Nickel City, has plans for 10 machines in San Diego. That's awesome. Cannot wait. Zach and I did our maiden voyage into Nickel City. You have to pay a cover to get into Nickel City. I believe it's $2 and maybe 25 cents or something like that. And then, yes, the games run on nickels. Can't stand that. Don't like that. However, it does make some of the games cheap, because some of the games are only 6 nickels. Like, I believe Simpsons Pinball Party, 6 nickels, 30 cents a play. Not bad. Wizard of Oz, however, is 20 nickels. And that's obnoxious. Although it was for some reason skipping a couple credits as you put it in, so it actually was only 18 nickels a discount. So yes, they have Wizard of Oz. They have Tron Pro. They have Simpsons Pinball Party. They have Indiana Jones, the Stern version. They have Lethal Weapon 3. They have South Park. Is that 6 games? I don't remember. Am I missing one? I don't know. But I'm excited. There's going to be more games. Can't wait. That's good to see. So Zach and I had a good time. He had this habit of being the second player when we'd play 2-player games, and he would always eclipse my score at the very end. Like, I would be up, you know, by a bunch, and then he would just get something really awesome going and get me. So, but it was still a lot of fun. We were playing a bunch of Tron, and going from Tron, which is one of the faster games in pinball, to then Wizard of Oz is pretty amazing, because Wizard of Oz is very slow. Very slow. I feel like I'm missing a game, but I guess not. Wizard of Oz, Tron, Sims Pinball Party, South Park, Indiana Jones 4, and Lethal Weapon 3. Yeah, that's all. Zach's good. Zach's old school. Zach doesn't really know that there's 3 skill shots on some games or this or that. He just kind of keeps the ball going. He has a good, like, 2-handed sort of shake nudge that he does. I don't even know if he's doing. Doesn't drain down the center as much because he's really good at getting the ball over to a flipper that way. A lot of the feedback from the last show centered around how Zach had a different take on it, and it was refreshing, and people liked hearing the interaction. I did get a couple people who said they prefer the show solo. I was surprised at that because I've seen some posts and gotten some emails like, hey, we like the interview segments, we like your interaction with someone, you should bring someone on from time to time. But I did get some people who said, hey, stick to what you got. Zach's cool once in a while. So appreciate the feedback. I would tell you that I take all your feedback really serious and will mold the show to your expectations, but that would be nonsense and not true because I don't. I love your feedback. I'm just not going to use it to, influence the show a whole lot. Unless you absolutely hate a segment, and then make me just want to do it again. Because I'm a jerk like that. What else is going on? Pinside's just chattery. I was driving home today listening to Don and Jeff on the Pinball podcast, and Don was sort of lamenting that he's kind of bummed out by the hobby at this point, kind of a summertime blues for Don over at the Pinball Podcast. I think he's had some bad local experiences with some Craigslist buyers and then getting a little frustrated with some of the negativity on the Pinside forums. And I guess I recognize that, and I guess that I do see that there are people whose goal every day is to go into many threads and just argue or have the counterpoint or take the ultra negative approach, and you can't argue with people like that because that's what they want. They want to fight with you, and a lot of times they will start an argument with an argument based in reality or based on a definite, they have a good point is what I guess I'm trying to say, but it's just the way they go about it. Like, yes, we can all sit here and just kill Jersey Jack all day long. There's lots of threads with that. And I'm just using this as a for instance. I'm not talking about any one thing specifically. But we can all get into Pinside and just slam on Jersey Jack. Oh, there's more limited editions. Oh, he hasn't delivered the games. Oh, he said this, blah, blah, blah. And we can do all that. Or we can just choose not to support his company. Don't spend money there if you feel strongly that way. Or do spend money there. And hope that what he does ends up helping the hobby that you're supposed to like. You're into this, right? If you're taking the time to go on to Pinside and read these threads and get into the forums, quit being a jerk. Like, seriously. I get, like I was telling Zach, like 1 out of 20 emails, maybe 1.5 out of 20 emails I get is like really negative. And I'm not talking about the constructive criticism, the like, hey man, like, I'd really like to hear some more EM talk. I get it. I totally get it. I don't talk about EMs enough for you because I don't really know enough about EMs for you, and I shouldn't talk about what I don't know about. I'll talk about them when I have a subject to talk about. I get it. That's constructive criticism. We can have a conversation about that. But the really negative stuff like, dude, you're just a hack who's trying to sell your t-shirts. It's like stuff like that. I'm like, why is your day that bad and your life that bad that you had to email me to tell me that I'm a hack and I'm just trying to sell t-shirts? Like, really? Whether or not that's the truth remains to be seen, but really, I don't reply to that stuff because I sort of feel sorry for the person doing that they're spending their energy in their short lifetime reaching out or lashing out, and that's what a lot of these forums are, and it's not just pinball. Oh my gosh, no. I've been members of other forums and other interests I've had over the years. And there's always this point where things start to get popular. I know scuba diving had it for a while. When I was into scuba diving, you'd get these people who their sole thing was to go in and like criticize the price of used gear on the forums, criticize the trip reports that people would put, and just like tear everything apart because I think they're looking for somewhere in the world they can like spout out their knowledge. And you definitely get a little bit of that in Pinside. I think maybe some more of that was in our, rec.games.pinball. If you know a lot, cool. But then you got guys like, I don't know, like a Lloyd, LTG, who knows more than most of us, and he chooses to use that knowledge in a really positive way. And the same can kind of go with your opinions. If all you have is like horrible negativity and bad things to say about Jersey Jack, about Stern, about remake of games, about Planetary Pinball, whatever, like find something that you're into and happy about to post about. It'll make you feel better, I think. Or don't, just be a jerk, whatever you want. This is not self-help with Nate. It's just really not. Anyway, I owe you guys a bunch of talk about what happened back in 1997, because last episode was 97, just 97, and I was going to do the highlights and lowlights of 97, 96, 97, 98, 99, leading up to episode 100. Just a little pullback behind the curtain for you folks. I was going to preempt 98 with an interview show, and I dropped the ball on the interview. I had an interview set up, time all set, and then I got caught up and couldn't get free and had to postpone a very cool interview that I'm excited to do, hopefully later this week, although my birthday is getting in the way. But sometime in the next 7 days, I plan on having a really cool interview with someone who will have lots to talk about. And we'll have lots of current things coming up and things in the future to talk about. So I can't wait to have that interview. That was supposed to be episode 98. I screwed up, couldn't do it, had to cancel, delay, whatever you want to call it. So 98 is going to be the highlights and lowlights of 97, right into the highlights and lowlights of 98, and whatever else we decide to chat about here on Coast to Coast Pinball. So let's do that.
Highlights and lowlights.
1997. Some could call 97 really the beginning of the dark ages of pinball. But it's there's a weird dichotomy in 97 because there were only 8 pinball games released in 1997. But some of them are like the greatest of all time, right? Like we're now remaking a game from 1997 and people are paying $8,000 for it. But yet this was the dark days of pinball because it was pinball on location and it was dying off. Sega was sort of coming with a lot of titles, and in fact, the 8 games that were made, 4 were Sega. 4 were Williams Midway games, and 4 were Sega. We don't have production numbers on those Sega games. We have kind of guesstimates, but I don't think they made that many fewer games than Williams. It was really an interesting time period. If you start off the year, the first game that came out was in March of 97, and it's a Williams game under the Midway name. I believe it's actually under the Bally name. Maybe it's Midway. I don't recall what's on the box. But the game's NBA Fast Break. George Gomez, right? With Kevin O'Connor artwork. This was a game that, almost 4,500 of these games were made. Very innovative design with the basket shot and a layout that still, I think, is very unique. It had this alternate scoring system where you actually scored by getting baskets, which is different. They were trying to do something different, something left of center. Obviously NBA Fast Break had been a massive hit as an arcade game, so they were trying to convert that over to pinball. Did it work? I don't know. Hard to say. I think, one of the things, there's a lot going on with this game. They also tried to do something different where you could link the games. You could have 2 of these games next to each other and actually play against 2 players. It was, the world's first linked pinball. They talked about it. If an operator were to buy 2 games, you would get the linking kit, quote unquote, for free. And now you have a lot of collectors who go out of their way to try and buy 2 of these so they can actually have that full-on linked experience game. It's a game I've never been very good at. I've played this in competition. I've played this on location. Oftentimes, I see these games needing a little bit of work. I think there seems to be wear on this game for some reason. I don't know if it's the fan layout or something about where the ball hits the stand-ups, or I don't know. I've just seen some beat-up NBA Fast Breaks over the years. But I don't know. It has a charm to it, I guess. I'm not sure if it's a game I would own unless I had a very large home collection. But they were definitely looking for things different. You saw that as definitely a theme of this era with the coming of Pinball 2000. They were trying to, push pinball forward. And I don't know. I guess it didn't work. You also had the back box flipper used here on NBA Fast Break. I think Gomez and team were just going out of their way to do something different, to do something innovative. If you go back and watch the promo video for NBA Fast Break, George Gomez is talking about how the customers wanted something different and new, so they gave you this flipper that shoots a basketball to a basket. It's kind of gimmicky, really, when looking back. The scoring is really low. It does the whole 1-point scores for free throws, 2 points for shooting the ball around, and then there's 3-point baskets. I really love the innovative passing the ball between the little players, where the defender comes on the arc and guards you. You pass the ball between and then take your shot. There's some cool stuff going on here, for sure. I don't know if it holds up. I think one of the problems doing long-term, like an NBA or NFL or that sort of sports franchise, not franchise, but sports league theme, is it kind of gets dated looking really quick as that league changes, as teams change, as things move on. And this game always has had that vibe to me. But you can definitely see that Williams was trying with NBA Fast Break to do something different. And I think you can see that George Gomez is a pretty smart guy with a lot of innovation going around his mind, and that's probably now why he's basically in charge of a lot of what's going on at Stern. So after NBA Fast Break in 1997, we moved to the first Sega game of the year, and they landed one of the biggest licenses of all times, the Star Wars license, with Star Wars Trilogy. This is a game supposed to be based on, at the time, the only 3 Star Wars movies. And a lot of people thought those would be the only Star Wars movies ever, those original 3. And Star Wars Trilogy, not a game I have a lot of experience with. I have much more experience with the other Star Wars game from Data East. But I kind of like the layout of Trilogy in that it has drop targets up to the far right, which you don't always see. It has a cool X-Wing, fighter cannon on it. It has that late 90s Sega artwork vibe where a lot of stuff seemed a little too big and it just didn't always fit right. It has the big hole over on the right side, which we would later see again with everyone's favorite game, South Park. I've never been a fan of the big gaping hole on the playfield. So there's something that's not very satisfying to me about shooting a ball through like a big, wide, just emptiness on the field. That always kind of drives me nuts. Big Darth Vader, coming out between the flippers. That's pretty cool. There's just a vibe to these Sega games from this era that a lot of people, I think, don't really care for, don't really love. This is a game that I don't see come up very often, which tells me it probably is being held by Star Wars collectors, or there aren't that many of them made. I mean, that's what I'm guessing. Actually, I'm really interested to go back and look at bostonpinball.biz and see what the average eBay selling price is on Star Wars Trilogy, because I'm out looking at that one right now. And I have to apologize. I don't know much about the rules to this game to even, really tell you much about it. Star Wars Trilogy. Looks like the average selling price, $2,700 this year. All-time $2,100. So I think the Star Wars theme inflates the price on that a little bit. I'm not sure this is a game that I feel is quite worth it. It ranks okay when you look at like how people rate the game, but I think on the pin side, top 100, 200, 300 as it may be, I think this game's pretty low. I'm trying desperately to find that right now. Sorry, doing this live. Not live to tape, that is. Star Wars Trilogy. Yeah, see, this game right now is the number 169th ranked game. So it's down there a ways. Not, like I said, not a game I know a ton about. I think the production on this one was somewhere in the low 2000s. I don't have a confirmed number on that one. But that was Sega's first game of 1997. So following that is a game we've gone into very, very deep discussions about over and over again, and we'll just kind of, I want to use this time to explore another angle at this, but the next game released in 97 was Medieval Madness in June of 1997. So here we are in July of 2014, 17 years later, and Medieval Madness is still one of the biggest games being talked about. I had some emails when I did a brief mention and had my little oversight of Pat Lawler talking about the Big Five and who the Big Five pinball designers are. And I've done a lot of thinking about that, and I think the answer is there isn't a Big Five. There's probably more like a Big Seven or something like that. A couple people wrote me and said, you should consider Brian Eddy. Eddie? I think it's Eddie, not Edie. It'd be Eddie. Because although he doesn't have a lot of games, and the two emails I had on him were both basically the same email, basically said, look, he doesn't have a lot of games, but what he does have are, some of the biggest games ever. And Medieval Madness and Attack from Mars are obviously kind of the standouts there. Brian's also tied to the software of some other big games. Tied to the software in credit form in Funhouse. I believe Black Rose, unless he was the actual designer on Black Rose, but I think he was software. Yeah, software. It's a John Trudeau game with Brian Eddy also listed. Bride of Pinbot, he has credits on that game as well in the software side of things. And then obviously Indiana Jones Pinball Adventure, another big one. And then probably the game that, to me, it's one of the most underrated games that's not underrated. It's not underrated because it's worth a lot and people talk about it, but it still sort of slips a lot of time, and that's The Shadow. Brian Eddy, did The Shadow also, and that's a pretty great game. But Medieval Madness is probably the benchmark for his career. Brian Eddy, Lyman Sheets doing the software, and you guys know all the history and what's happening with it now, and how amazing it is that they're bringing this thing back to life, because this is the number one game on the Pinside Top 100. This is the top. I think that from time to time another game will hop up there when it's new, but often it falls back. And right now the top game is Medieval Madness with an 8.878 rating. That's really high. Medieval Madness, a lot of people think, is sort of the perfect mix of comedy, a cool theme, great flow, interesting shots that feel good to hit, challenging. It's a challenging game, and Medieval Madness is it, and that came out in 1997. Less games were made of Medieval Madness than NBA Fast Break. I mean, think about that for a minute. I don't know what else to say other than I can't wait for the unboxing videos and photos for people's brand new Medieval Madness games to start rolling out really soon. It's pretty exciting. So Medieval Madness lives. 97, not a good game, not a good year for me in the Sega games, because the next game to hit up here is The Lost World Jurassic Park. It's a John Borg design. John Borg has been working with the folks at Stern/Sega/Data East for a long time now, and he was the head designer on The Lost World Jurassic Park. And I think that on the surface you think, oh, this theme's a great idea. Jurassic Park was one of the big Data East games. So they tried to do the sequel, and I don't think it came out as good as the original. Again, we've got this kind of big, clunky art. Also, the inserts in this game are sort of kind of big. I don't love the look of it. I don't know what it is about the look. I just have never liked it. Obviously, I think a lot of people, when they think about this game, they think about the toys on the game, because you have this egg to hatch a baby T-Rex right there on the playfield. You also have the snagger, which they called a never-before-seen device. Captures and locks the pinball for exciting multi-ball action. Yeah, okay, snagger. If that's what you think. There's a magnetic trap, as they call it in this game. So, it's actually not a bad layout. I kind of like the layout. I think a re-theme of this would be pretty cool. There's also a kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but a 3D back glass on some of these. I guess do they call it a 3D? They do call it a 3D back glass. They tried to go with the big T-Rex coming at you on the car, and you actually don't see the title of the game on this thing. And it's that Sega curved back glass that they were using at that time. And I never have been a fan of not putting the title of the game in big bold letters on the game. That drives me crazy, and they do that here. They do the Sans title. They had a topper, of course, that said The Lost World, but the toppers disappear. It doesn't always last. So again, not a game that I know a lot about, again, from a playing point of view, because it's just never really grabbed my attention once I start playing said game. But you see them out there. I see them for sale. These are another game probably in that $2,200 to $2,700 range, somewhere in that. Sorry, I'm stuttering because I'm trying to find out what this thing's ranked on the Pinside Top 100, 200, 300, because I didn't take such good notes today, if you know what I'm saying. Wow, it is actually number 296. So I think that sort of speaks to what I'm trying to say here is, on the surface, if you look at The Lost World, it's not a bad layout. It's really just a fan layout. It sort of looks like Attack from Mars if you can get past all the dinosaurs and everything. The problem with this game is there's not a lot for you. It's a lot of time-based modes, if I remember correctly, and you sort of just shoot the same stuff over and over again, which doesn't bode well for the modern pinball collectors, sort of what we're all looking for, because we're all sort of looking for, fun and depth and all that good stuff. Speaking of, Sega also right after that released the X-Files. And the X-Files is a game that I just played for the first time last year. Talk about the epitome of artwork I don't like. It's the X-Files. But with that being said, I am here to defend the X-Files. Yes, the art's horrible. And I mean horrible, like I hate it. On a 1 to 10, I give it a 2. And it only gets a 2, because it's not Genesis. Okay, so, or Lady Luck, or whatever that game is that I couldn't stand. I hate the X-Files artwork. I do like the layout. The layout's okay. Nothing wrong with it. I like the file cabinet. I mean, if you told me, hey, we're going to make a file cabinet as the main toy, I'm going to say that's dumb. I kind of like it. It's got a magnet. It's all right. I like the alien baby. Alien babies are cool. I like the little creepy, what do they call him, Fluke Man? Flukeman or whatever it is that like diverts the ball on the right side. That's kind of cool. This game's actually pretty tough. It has a really hard ramp shot that's difficult. It has a deep rule set. It has a wizard mode. There's a lot going on to this. I don't love the back box. It's okay. The Duchovny and what's-her-face, Mulder and Scully or whatever these people are. I don't know. It's all right. To me, the back box doesn't quite hold up for me now. But I kind of like this game. It's a little dark. I think LEDs probably help this game a lot. I don't know if I've seen one with LEDs or not, but definitely could help. I think that this is probably a good steal for somebody looking for a first game or a game at home. Man, I hate the artwork. I don't love any of these Sega games. The stupid fluorescent light bulb, tube bulb in the back box drives me crazy. Just a chintzy way to do it. It doesn't look good. But I that all being said, there's a certain charm, I think. The music's kind of cool. It's variations on that theme from the TV show. And I was never a big X-Files TV show guy. I just never paid attention to it for whatever reason. And people always tell me how much I love it. But, I kind of like the cabinet, capturing the balls from multi-ball. And it just has a nice flow and build to it. So it's rated like 233rd, I think. Yeah, 233rd in the Pinside top 300. That's too low. I disagree with that rating. So if you see an X-Files out there, if I called it Xbox earlier, I feel like I've been calling it Xbox. If you see an X-Files out there, give it your quarters, play it, try it. And if you're collecting a bunch of games, you see one at a good deal, buy it. Give it some love. Try the X-Files. I will defend that Sega game. Next in October, fantastic game, Circus Voltaire. Another game where you saw some new things being tried. We had the DMD display down in the back box. We had this giant Ringmaster toy that came out from the playfield and had, emptiness around him that you could shoot to beat him in the fight. It's a John Papaduke game. This might be in my head when I think about John Papaduke. I always think about this game and I think of Tales of the Arabian Nights. There's something about this game and just the sound and the ringmaster kind of fighting with you and all of that, that's pretty great. I've always liked this game. It was a limited run, 2,700 of these games. So we're starting to get into these low numbers, even at Williams. I like the use of the magnets. I like the rule set. Basically, I know I read some people say that they feel the rules could have been better, could have been fleshed out more, whatever. I'm a big fan. I like it. I wish I could own one of these. This is a game I would definitely own. It had the neon tube light, produced in all these different colors, and there's like a ball in the cage, the menagerie ball. So those two things usually matched, the neon color and the ball. So just some kind of cool different things. The menagerie ball was sort of a different way to randomize, the gameplay. It had a pop bumper that came out from inside the playfield, which I always just thought was so cool. The artwork is just unlike, I don't think anything else even sort of like it. It's really different, really neat. Game looks great, lit up with LEDs now. I'm a big fan, obviously. Me and that Ringmaster have a bit of a history. I will not bore you with all of that right now. We will not get into that now, I promise.
You're a disaster, but I am still the Ringmaster.
But again, this really speaks to sort of the sadness that I have about these late 90s Williams games were so good. So much going on, so much fun, and the company was just getting ready to kill off pinball. It's just like, oh man. Right after that, again, No Good Gophers. Another game. I love No Good Gophers. This is like Pat Lawler kind of on speed to me, because it's got a lot of the typical Pat Lawler kind of feel and ideas behind it. It does have the big giant hole at the back of the game, which I was just saying I don't like, but I'm talking about the circular holes like South Park that I don't like. It has sort of a big drop-off hole towards the back, which I don't love, but I like it. It has, a real charm about No Good Gophers. Obviously, it was sort of the take on Caddyshack with the rogue gophers trying to screw up your golf game. And we had other attempts at this by other companies, but No Good Gophers is, to me, the pinnacle of golf on pinball. Absolutely. I'm a big golfer, so I love this game. This is the year of games from Williams that if all I could ever have and play was 1997 Williams games, I'd be pretty happy. No Good Gophers. I want to do a whole show on No Good Gophers. I don't even want to talk too much about it right now. Pat Lawler incorporated a spinning wheel. He incorporated pop-up guys with the gophers that you shot. The hole-in-one shot, everyone always talks about it because it's awesome. It's this shot you don't get in very many attempts at. You have to time it right, hit the ramp, shoot the ball up there. It's cool, a little awkward. Game's got to be tweaked and set up right for it to work properly, but it's great. I like it. Somebody's currently working on a new rule set for No Good Gophers, which we may see via, I believe that's a P-Rock project, right? I forget. Can't keep these things straight. But No Good Gophers, very fun game. There was 2 of them in Atlanta. That wasn't Atlanta. That was Seattle, the Northwest show this year. And one of them just had all blue LEDs. It was just blue. It was like the blue No Good Gophers, as I kept calling it. I would tell people hey, let's go play the blue No Good Gophers, because you couldn't get anywhere near it without just this blue glow coming out of it. And it kind of looked cool with the plastics that are in that game. So it's one of my favorite games on Farsight's Pinball Arcade, of the ones that I have and I play No Good Gophers quite a bit. So anyway, very cool game. Rule set probably does need to be finished and sort of fleshed out. I'm definitely a fan of this game with Bud and Buzz, the Rogue Gophers. Starship Troopers is next. Starship Troopers, 1997 Sega game. Everything I said about Lost World Jurassic Park, yes. Except probably a lot more to shoot at. This game's busier and has more going on. Hate the artwork. I hate the curved back glass. I hate the side of this game has giant words on it. Join now, death from above. And it's just, I don't like it. It's sort of supposed to be like a pitch for you to join the Starship Troopers and go fight the evil aliens. I don't care for it. They use lots of the movie music and then custom speech for this game. Definitely, sci-fi type thing. It has 3 or 4 multi-balls. They were going for this color look at this time at Sega, and I just don't like all that multi-color type thing. This game could be like the older brother of Mustang, sort of. Kind of has that kind of color to it. I think I laughed pretty hard when I was researching this game. that one of the bullet points on the flyer for Starship Troopers is flashy light shows. Thank you for the flashy light shows. And I'll tell you something else that's actually a bullet point all the way back in 1997. And you've heard this before. The last bullet point for Starship Troopers on the flyer, easy to play, hard to master. Dun, dun, dun. Gary Stern. So, highlights in this game, there's a brain bug. Bash him and watch him squirm around. It has a third flipper down, they went old school with this. They have your normal flippers, and then you have the little mini kind of shorter flipper just touching the right lower flipper right there. So it's a tri-flipper, kind of like an old school, they did back on some of the classic games where you had multiple flippers down at the bottom. So that was sort of different. I don't know if I have really any opinion on if I like or hate that. I don't really love the theme. This movie was terrible. I remember falling asleep in the movie theater at this movie. I didn't like it. I don't really love the way it turned out on the game. The play of this game's okay. I never really know what I'm doing. There's digital or numeric displays on the play field telling me how many of these enemies I've killed. It's okay. Again, probably a really good first pinball machine for somebody because it is modern. It does have a DMD, and there's lots to do. It's just not something that I'm very interested in, and I don't know if it's hold up so well over time. Starship Troopers has actually fallen out of the Pinside Top 100. I know for a while it was in the Top 100. It's actually 105 right now. So it's 105. We had a few games in the mid 200s. I didn't actually look up Circus Voltaire and No Good Gophers. I know those are both top 100 games. Circus Voltaire is sitting at 15th, and No Good Gophers is usually somewhere there. It's number 32. So 97, it's such this weird kind of haves and have-nots. You've got, Medieval Madness, Circus Voltaire, No Good Gophers, NBA Fast Break. Did we look up where NBA is? Is NBA top 100? NBA is... you can't search NBA on this because it'll bring up the word pinball. If you knew what I was doing, you'd laugh at me right now. Trying to Control F NBA on a page that has the word pinball 112 times. So, no, NBA Fast Break looks to be 114th. So, but still higher than a lot of the others. So, but you had some of the top games ever from Williams and some of just the lower rated games ever from the Data East Sega Stern folks. Interesting year. And things didn't really get any better the next year. So, 1998. If 97 was a weird year where we had these great games from Williams that weren't getting built enough, 97 was, more of the same and actually fewer. And Sega was really struggling themselves. They were building fewer games. This year's even worse in some regards to the sort of the dichotomy of these great games with low builds and these horrible, I shouldn't say horrible games, but I guess I can say horrible games from Sega. Starting off 98, you have a game I've seen in person one time, and that's called Viper Night Drive-In. That's based around the Dodge Viper sports car. Most people's first takeaway, or first thing they're going to think of if they know anything about Viper Night Driving, is that the game used special balls. It didn't use regular silver balls. It used these yellow glow balls that were lit by 3 black lights around the game. So some people think Big Bang Bar was the only game to ever use a black light. Well, actually, Viper Night Drive-In used black lights, a lot of them, and now Predator by Skit B will have black lights. So the whole thing here was you had to start certain modes to get the lights to change. The general illumination would go off, and these black lights came on and lit up these yellow glow balls. Well, a lot of people didn't like the way the glow balls felt and played. and I believe they were just a steel silver ball that had this covering on them. Nobody's remade these things yet, unless it might have happened very recently. But as of a while back when I had been looking at this game, because somebody actually had one for sale in Southern California, nobody had remade those balls because it's a low production game, a little over 1,000 games made. And it's not a game that a lot of people will tell you that have played it a lot is all that compelling of a game. It's a fan layout with a bunch of kind of fan shots. I obviously, I'm not into the theme. I think if you listen to the show, I don't really get into the car theme. Doesn't really do it for me. The color scheme reminds me of the current Mustang color scheme, except with this game we've got the tacky girl in, I want to say like short denim shorts, but that might just be my imagination running away with me. Nope, yep, she's wearing short denim shorts right in the middle of the playfield, and yeah. So, rare game you're not going to see a lot of. I never really got the back part of this playfield. There's this giant silver, and in my head it was always a waterfall, but I actually don't think that's what it is. I think it's what do they call it? They call it the Devil's Tower model, which I'm assuming is some sort of place where people race cars or run cars or something like that. There was roadkill raccoons featured back there that, like, I think they shook around. And then there was also, remember the DJ back in the day, Man Cow, who was like a morning host who really wanted to be Howard Stern. He's like featured in this game. So this game was just kind of all over the place. It had the big post-save thing between the flippers that I'm also not a huge fan of, although a game we'll talk about here in a second has it, and I like it there. Also had Viper mini race cars above the pop bumpers, sort of kind of like Cactus Canyon, which had the guns above the pop bumpers. This has two little cars above the pop bumpers, and I don't like that stuff. This game, with the black lights, are these big clunky assemblies, and they sort of hang over on either side of the playfield, and then these cars hang over into the playfield. Everything just felt really kind of pushed in on this. I'm not a fan. And I think that sort of bears out in its rankings on the pin side, top whatever. It's number 292nd. So, rare game, most people haven't played. There's probably less than 1,000 of them still around, figuring some games go away. So if you see it, definitely jump on it, give it a shot. And if it does have the glow balls, hopefully the light wherever you are will be dim enough that the effect will actually work. So, speaking of a game that also has the post down the middle between the flippers, is a game in April of 1998, The Champion Pub. If you've listened to this show for a long time, I really like this game. It's a rare game. There was less than 1,400 of these games being made, so we're now at the point in the Bally-Williams Midway era where things got pretty bleak. And this is a game that is very interesting in that it to me, it almost plays like a video game more so than almost anything else, because it has a great boxing theme to it where you're working your way through the progression of fighters as you play this pinball machine. And obviously, I think we've all seen Champion Pub with the big fighter guy who turns around when it's time to have a fight in the middle of the playfield, and you have to shoot him, sort of like the Ringmaster, but more interactive, and his arms always break off and stuff. I think it's a very novel game. I have a real affinity for this thing. They go for between $4,000 and $7,000. If they were any less than that, I'd probably own one. I think in a home environment, it probably wears a little thin after a while. A lot of people talk about this game being way too easy. Maybe it's that I grew up playing Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on my Nintendo, and this is the closest thing to that in the pinball world, that I really love it. They integrated some awesome ideas where you have these modes where you're training, and there's a jump rope mode where you have this steel jump rope thing that does little twists up in the back left, and you jump the ball with the flippers up in the air using magnets to jump the ball on one side, and then there's the punching bag thing on the other side. I'm a huge fan of the Champion Pub. If I ever live in a place again that's not a Southern California condo with no space, and I run into the right Champion Pub, I'll be going for it and buying it. It's a game I would like to own, at least for 6 months to a year to really get my fill. I play it every time I see it on location. There's some faults in the scoring you'll read about, where there's certain things that are just way out of whack, and we were at an era where games weren't getting the love on the software side that they had been, I think, and we saw some of that. But I'm a big fan of Champion Pub. I think it's unique. The green little ramps that like ramp your ball up into the guy's face to punch him are cool. It's very different. It's one of those games that I don't think there's anything else quite like it, and maybe that's why I like it so much. But Champion Pub, it ranks really high. Again, we're in this weird era where the Sega games coming out have not held up at all. Incredibly bad rankings, and the Williams stuff ranked very well. This game is sort of, some people call it a one-trick game in a lot of ways. It's the 48th ranked game on the Pinside Top 100. So that's the Champion Pub. Lost in Space. The number you'll see on Lost in Space, and this is based off the TV show Lost in Space, or the movie, excuse me, the movie, not the original TV show, but the movie Lost in Space, I think. I'm a little sketchy on this. There's one of these on location in my travels at Jack Bar in New York, or at least there was at one point. So I have played Lost in Space, and it's that same Sega era of game where you've got this art that I don't care for. They cram a bunch of sci-fi toys on here. For a long time, I couldn't tell the difference between this game, X-Files, Starship Troopers, and one other. They all just sort of seemed like the same game to me, quite honestly. I actually really like the ramps on this game. The ball returns are cool. They're neat. The toys are cool, but it's really busy. I mean, really busy. They at the time, back in '98, the things that they were bragging about in this game, it was the replicas, the Jupiter 2, the Major Don West Bubble Fighter, and the robot. And forgive me, I don't know the robot from Lost in Space. I've never watched the show, haven't seen the movie. There was a spinning magnetic disc in there, so we had a spinning disc on the playfield. And then big ugly inserts across the middle. That was a bragging point to Sega at that time. Lost in Space. The number you see though is less than 600 units. That's an approximate number. So also a John Borg design. I don't know much about the rule set per se, but this is a rare game. This is one of those games that you just probably haven't played unless you were, out playing pinball at that time when it came out, which I'm sure some listeners to this show were. Lost in Space, I haven't looked at its ranking. We're going to do that right now while I'm not live here on the show and see where it's ranked. I'm even wondering if it has enough rankings to even chart, because you have to have a certain amount of rankings on the Pinside Top 100 to even chart. It does. It's number 287. That's kind of the theme for these late 90s Sega games. They don't hold up well. They haven't ranked well. So Lost in Space, a definite rare one. Sega also had a game called Golden Q that was built in a very, very limited capacity, like less than a dozen prototype test games were built. And what I'll tell you about Golden Q is it was built by the division of Sega that built the Golden Tee golf games that you've probably seen in bars and sports bars all across the country for the last 20 years. Because Golden Tee was very popular. I remember at this time in my life I was playing Golden Tee. It was a trackball golf game, and those were linked around the country, so you could actually score and compete with people all around the country. So the idea with Golden Q, which was a pool-themed pinball machine, was to link these games around the country and have tournaments all over the place and have prizes awarded. It's actually a game that they eventually redid into Sharky Shootout when Sega became Stern, but originally it was set to be Golden Q in the late 90s. So there's very few of them out there. So more side note, not even a real true release. And so there's 3 games left for the year, and 2 of the games are 2 of the greatest games of all time, and then Godzilla. So to kind of set you up here, the George Gomez masterpiece, and I'll call it a masterpiece because I believe it is one of the best pinball machines ever built, end of story, period, is Monster Bash. Monster Bash came out in July of 1998. George Gomez, Kevin O'Connor, Lyman Sheets doing software. Has there ever been a better integration of a theme into a pinball machine? I think it's better than Medieval Madness. I think it's better than Attack from Mars. It is fantastic. The monsters, the Universal monsters, are putting a band back together and they're going to tour the world. It's the best. There's nothing better. You cannot tell me there's a better integration of a theme. You have Frankenstein, the Mummy, Wolfman, Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Bride of Frankenstein, all on the same game. It's so awesome. And they all play their own instruments, and you collect them, and the call-outs are fun and quirky. When I was doing my big reveal of what game I was going to buy this year, and I was trying to lead people to believe that maybe it was Monster Bash, somebody emailed me and said, Nate, there's no way you're buying Monster Bash. It's too easy. No, you're wrong. I would buy Monster Bash in a heartbeat. It's too expensive is why I don't buy Monster Bash. It has held its value very well. It's gone way up in value. You see them regularly priced in the low five figures, the $10,000 to $12,000 range. Fantastic game. The music's awesome. I hope they can remake this game someday. I really do. I would be more interested in this game than I would Attack from Mars, and more than I am in Medieval Madness. So we will do more on Monster Bash at a later date. Maybe that'll be the Halloween episode this year or something, because it deserves its due, and it has stories to be told. It's fantastic, but that was also a 98 release. Godzilla came after that. This is a Sega game based off the abomination of the movie Godzilla at that time. Horrible movie. They made Godzilla into this terrible looking lizard. I don't think they made an awful lot of these, although there's no number that I've ever seen attached to Godzilla. I know that they're out there, though, because I have seen them. I saw them in a garage somewhere. When I bought my Judge Dredd, the guy that I bought Judge Dredd for had a Godzilla, and I think Teresa played it. I haven't played it a lot. I don't know a ton about it. I just know that they were really pumping up the serviceability of this game. It does have a cool Godzilla face in the back, back left. Hopefully that's not a precursor to what Smaug is going to look like on The Hobbit, because it's sort of in the same type of general area. But their quote on the flyer from Godzilla back then was, radioactive Zilla breath sends balls hurling in different directions, or what they're really meaning is there's magnets that Godzilla is throwing your ball around with. Captive sonar balls make attacks fierce with powerful momentum. I don't even know what to say about that. The nuclear captive balls. So feel the rumble of Godzilla steps, so shaker motor. Premium 4-color art. Ooh, 4-color art. Don't go all out there, Sega. But terrible movie that this thing was based on. It again, I feel like I'm just piling on these Sega games because I try and defend Data East a lot, because I have a soft spot for Data East. But when it became Sega, I have a tough time defending a lot of this. It's just not that. It's not that interesting. The number on Pinside, which I didn't realize they had a number attached to it, is 510 units. That's not a lot. This game ranks at 175, which is better than some of the other ones. Again, very low production, so I'm thinking, there's 75 people who have ranked this. I would guess there's a fair amount of people who probably haven't even played the game. I think that's the reality of it. So, Godzilla. The final game of 1998... with a production under 1,000 by Williams, is Cactus Canyon. Production was actually stopped short on Cactus Canyon so they could start the Pinball 2000. This is, as you might say, the end of sorts. Cactus Canyon would be the final traditional, as we know what a traditional pinball machine looks like, that Williams would ever make, that would ever come off the line from the Bally Midway Williams factory out in Chicago. And it was a great game, fantastic game. I've actually gotten to play this game quite a bit in the last couple years. There's a few that have been taken to shows that are in really good shape. There was one for a time on location at Modern Pinball in New York. It's an Old West theme. I think it's a theme that could be kind of revisited by a company at some point, doing the Old West type of thing. I don't love the guns that come across from the lower apron over to the pop bumpers, and that's one of the few things about this game that I don't like. I love the train that goes across the playfield on train tracks. I love the bad guy that you fight with. I love the pop-up targets that you have the gunfights with. I really, really like Cactus Canyon. It's another one of those magic original themes that they did where it just all sort of fit. It kind of is awesome. The rules, obviously, as are documented and pointed out all over the place, were terribly cut short because they were moving their focus to Pinball 2000 at the time. And we know of the project Cactus Canyon Continued, which was a homebrew new rule set designed, and I think it's pretty awesome. I think we should talk about that more on the show at a later point. I might have an interview that relates to that, and I'd like to also talk about it from other sides, because people own the rights to these games and at least the intellectual property side of these games. And Cactus Canyon Continued straddled that line really closely. So it's a very interesting story in and of itself. But it's a real shame that there weren't a few thousand of these made at the time, because it's a cool game. And I think it would probably be right up there with, to a lot of people, right up there with Medieval Madness. To me, it's sort of like a cross of Medieval Madness and Champion Pub on some level. That's how I always picture it in my head. I really like playing it. I think it's fun. It's different. It has a really cool kind of warmness to the playfield artwork. There's a lot of like oranges and yellows and whatnot. I like it. I'm a fan. If you go to a show and there's one there, definitely stand in line, play this game, because it's a cool one. And that was the end of Williams, really, for a lot of people. I think it was a Bally titled game. But after that, we had Pinball 2000s, the two games there, and that was it. So 97 and 98. We got to wrap this up. I really appreciate you listening. I did a shirt sale. I did a blowout of all the old style shirts I had. I sold almost all of them. That's awesome. I think all that's left is some smalls and maybe a couple mediums. I just need to remember in the future that really small people either don't play pinball, or if they play pinball, they could care less about my podcast and my silly t-shirts. So thank you guys so much for selling those out. Those will all be getting in the mail here today or tomorrow. And episode 99 is coming. Fair warning, I'm going to say this in advance. Episode 100, I have a confirmation of what's supposed to happen. The timing of it, I don't know. So if all of a sudden episode 101 pops up and you're like, what? Did I miss episode 100? Episode 100 may get put on hold and pulled out later. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'm not going to hold up the show. There's stuff going on. But I have something for episode 100 I'd like to do, and if it can't happen, I'll figure something out. But I've got plans. And then I know episode 99, if this interview that I screwed up yesterday can go through, that will be episode number 99. Could be 100, 101, or something. Papa's coming, so that's going to be on my mind heavily going forward. There's tons of stuff to talk about on the forums. We'll have another episode out in a few days. It's my birthday this week, so we'll see when I can get there. In any case, I don't want to hit an hour on this show, so gotta go. Thanks for listening. It's Coast2Coast Pinball episode number 98. Take care.